Are you ready to file your W-2 forms? Watch this lesson to learn how to complete your federal and state W-2 and W-3 forms. We guide you through the process to print or e-file them using Atrix tax forms and e-filing. After completing this lesson, you will be able to complete your federal and state W-2 and W-3 forms.
In Payroll, start by going to Tasks and select Federal e-file and Reporting. In the list of forms, select the W-2/W-3 form. And then in the Year drop-down list, we select the year we would like to use for the forms. And then click Next. You can choose to remove employees if that is applicable. It is not necessary to remove employees from this list that did not have earnings in the year you are reporting on. This is simply here to allow certain people to be removed if that is applicable. Click Next when you're ready. And then click Generate to start the W-2 process. And this brings you to the W-2 Setup Wizard, where you pick what you want to do. Your options are to test drive with just the first 25 employees, test drive with all employees, or process the actual W-2s. If you are simply here to test this out, use one of the test drive options, as this does not save any of the data, just allows you to try the feature out. In this example, go with the option to start processing W-2s, and then click Next. After confirming that your company EIN pre-filled properly, click Next. Most of your company information will pre-fill on this screen, but you will want to be sure that all fields are correct and make changes if necessary. Many forms contain information about the person who prepared it. To have that information filled out on your forms automatically, enter this information in the bottom part of the window. This can always be changed or entered on the form itself, but if it is the same person completing these forms each time, you can enter it here now to save some time later. When you have verified that all the information on this window is correct, click Next. Select the appropriate tax preparer type, then click Next. This brings up the State and Local Tax Items window. This window should show any state taxes that are currently being tracked in payroll. You will need to add your state tax account numbers to any state taxes shown in this window. Double-click the first tax ID you see in the list, and enter the account number. Notice the system is showing you the format it expects the number to be in below. And once the number has been entered, click OK. And now move on to the next tax ID, starting by double-clicking, entering the account number, and clicking OK. If there are taxes you are tracking that do not appear here, you can add them manually by clicking the Add button. Select the state the tax is in, assign a tax name, account number, and then click OK. In this case, there are no taxes to add, so click Cancel. You will only be prompted to complete this window the first time you are using Atrix, or if you were to start tracking any new taxes. The information you entered here is retained for future use. Now that you have added your tax account numbers to all the state taxes shown, click Next. In the Data Verification window, you must answer these yes or no questions. Select the appropriate answer to each question. If you have questions or need more information, click the question mark icon for help from Atrix. And when ready, click Next to continue. On the W-3 information screen, indicate what type of payer your business is, and then review the remaining fields and enter or make changes as appropriate. And when ready, click Next. If you track payroll data for a single EIN, but have the data separated using multiple master files or company data folders, Atrix has the ability to combine them in this process so that all of your W-2 information can be compiled in a single session. In this example, all payroll data is stored in a single file, so we will select No, I use a single payroll data file for this EIN. Now click Next. The report loads, and the next screen that appears is the W-2/1099 Preparer Grid. The first step here is to verify the employee information on the left-hand side is all correct. This includes things like the Social Security number, name, address, etc. When you click the Next Step button, a series of verifications are automatically performed to catch common mistakes. The first check it does is to confirm all the Social Security numbers are correct. Click Next now and see if there are any errors. Oops, it found a mistake. It appears there is an employee with an invalid Social Security number. To fix this, click Go Back and Correct. The invalid Social Security number is highlighted in red. Go to that field and enter the correct information. You must correct all errors before you are able to continue. Any cell that has an error will be highlighted in red. Making corrections in this grid will not update the information in payroll, so it is best to close out and fix the information in your payroll software rather than making changes here. This way, the next time you use this, the information will pre-fill correctly. If changes are made directly in this grid, be sure to remember to update the information in payroll when you are done. Click Next Step again to see if there are any other errors. Well, it looks like there is at least one more error to fix. This time the error is indicating there is an employee with a blank zip code. So it isn't just the Social Security number that it is looking at. It also confirms that the address information is entered properly, as it knows this information needs to be displayed on the printed W-2s. So again, click Go Back and Correct. And just like before, the field with the error is highlighted in red. So place your cursor there, enter it correctly, and click Next Step. Now the focus moves to the right side of the screen, which means all errors on the left have been fixed. The right side shows all the tax information that prints on the Form W-2. You will see the state wages and tax withheld in boxes 16 and 17. If the employee worked in more than one state, you will see multiple columns with the headings for box 16 and 17. When the forms print, the system will group together the different states to show on the employee's copies of the W-2s. The amounts that appear in this area of the W-2 Preparer grid display based on how you have configured the W-2 form template under Tools, Modify Forms, W-2 Forms in the payroll application. We have included a lesson titled Customize the W-2 template in the Year-End Anytime Learning subscription on sageu.com. It is possible to add columns or rows, as well as change amounts in this grid manually. But as mentioned earlier, this does not write back to your payroll database and will only be used while printing the W-2 forms. So it is recommended that you close this window and configure your W-2 template or correct any amounts that are incorrect in your payroll software directly, rather than doing so here. Then come back to this window when you are done. For more information about adding or modifying information in this window, click the question mark icon to access help topics. Now click Next Step to proceed. The system does another set of verifications here, and again will flag any records it sees as incorrect, highlighting them in red. Some of the errors it looks for include verifying Social Security and Medicare tax amounts calculated correctly, and also if there is any local withholding, that it does not exceed the state withholding for the state in which it resides. Now that you have verified that all of your data is correct, it is time to print or e-file the W-2 forms. You have a variety of options on how the W-2s will be submitted. You can select any of the e-file options, or select to not e-file at all if you wish to print your forms out yourself. Or you can select a combination. The complete e-filing service includes all of the items you see listed here. If you prefer to print and mail these forms on your own, or would like to choose a combination of printed and e-filed forms, select Other options and indicate which forms you would like to print versus those you would like to e-file. In this example, we will go through the steps to e-filing. You are about to start printing out all the federal W-2s, the W-3, state W-2s and possibly reconciliation forms, and finally the employer copies. If you would like to have divider sheets between each run, mark Yes here. For this example, choose No, do not include divider sheets. The last step in the W-2 filing wizard is called the Action List. In this window, you confirm your processing options. The Action List displays all forms and how they will be processed in the Forms viewer. Make sure you review the Action List for accuracy. You can also print a copy of the Action List for your records by clicking the Print button. Clicking Next will take you to the Form viewer where you can print all of the forms listed on this screen. The Form Viewer window opens and displays the first copy that will print. You can see how many pages will print and scroll between them using the buttons in the top left. The wording in the report steps tells you what to do, and up at the top it will show you how many forms you have to print and which one you are currently on. Click Print Final to start the process of printing this form. Click Print Final. If the form being printed requires anything other than standard printer paper, a warning will appear letting you know what paper to load into your printer. This particular form is printing in a 4 per page format, so it is telling you to use 4-part perforated paper. Once the proper paper is loaded into the printer, click OK, and a printer information screen appears. Once you click OK, the forms will start printing. Now you are on the federal W-2, or the copy that goes to the Social Security Administration along with the Form W-3. Click Print Final, and the printer window opens again. Click OK to start printing. Continue by clicking Next Step, which brings up the federal W-3. Click Print Final, and notice this time it goes right to the printer window. There is no warning about paper. This is because, like the federal W-2s you just printed, this prints on standard paper. It knows it warned us last time to make sure you replace the 4-part perforated forms with standard paper, so you can just continue printing on that same printer stock. Click OK. In this case, it is the Oregon State W-2s. Then click Next Step to move on to the next form, and a printer information screen appears. Once you click OK, the forms will start printing. Then click Next Step to move on to the next form. And this brings up the Oregon WR report. In some cases, there are fields that must be entered manually. These are highlighted in red, and you cannot continue until you have entered into these fields. This form has a few fields that need to be addressed before you are able to proceed. Click OK, then place your cursor in the first red field and enter the appropriate information. You can then use the Tab key on your keyboard to move to the next red field until they're all filled in. And once all the fields highlighted in red have been addressed, click Next Step. And a message will appear wanting you to confirm you have reviewed everything and are ready to proceed. Click Double Check if you'd like to go back and review or make further changes. Otherwise, click Agree. In the printer information screen, click OK to start printing that form. If you had selected to e-file any of the forms, clicking Next would prompt a login screen to open where you would enter your username and password for your e-filing account. You would then be prompted to specify a date for the submission to go through. Now that you have completed this lesson, you should be able to determine whether to e-file or print your W-2 forms, and use the selected method to complete your federal and state W-2 and W-3 filings.